Welcome back to another Seller Sessions podcast episode. My name is Adam. I'm really excited about this one today because I've got not only one of the OGs in the Amazon space, but somebody who's become a really close friend. Really started documenting his journey, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago on YouTube. When I first started getting into Amazon, he was one of the guys I followed. Over time, we became connected. Both have exited our businesses and really excited to catch up. And the purpose of this episode, because we've talked before a little bit more about your background in Amazon, pre-Amazon, etc., is really to talk about your exit experience and the post-exit experience. Because I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that you think that an exit is kind of the pinnacle of the mountaintop. And it's, the sky's part and everything's hunky-dory after that. But that's really the start of another interesting chapter, I think, in business and in human psychology and in living life. And so we'll dive into all that. But I'll let you do a quick intro and then we'll get into your exit experience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And Dude as well. This is my dog, Dude. He's about to turn 3. 2 days is going to be his birthday. So happy. And
one of the coolest dogs I've ever met. He's awesome.
Yes. He wants to be on this podcast. Dude, the camera's over there. You got to turn around. Anyways, my name is Tom. I'm based here in Vancouver. And I started selling on Amazon in 2017. I had a brand called Sedaris Skin Care. And it was a skincare line that my wife and I have started. And it's funny to say the word wife because I just got married 2 days ago. So I'm still trying to get used to it. During that time, she was my girlfriend. And then she became my fiance. And then now she's my wife. So yeah, it was a really interesting journey. I was working a 9-to-5 job. I was working at Yellow Pages as a sales representative. And I always knew that I wanted my own side hustles. And when I first started this Amazon FBA business, there was no expectations. It was like, cool, let's try this. If it doesn't work, it probably won't work. Let's go back and do something else. It was always just like dabbling in things. I was a very good dabbler. Our first product didn't do so well. Our second product failed completely. Our third product was the one that ended up doing really well. And then from there, we were able to use the capital and the confidence and the skill sets that we learned to actually expand the product line and form that into a quite successful skincare brand. At its peak, we're doing, I think at the time of exit, we're doing like $5 or $6 million a year in revenue. And honestly, I can tell you guys one thing, like on Amazon businesses, especially skincare and supplements, the margins are insane, amazing margins. And, we got like 3 employees. And honestly, man, like during that time, it was very, very fun. Like looking back in my business journey, the funnest moments that I've had and the happiest moments that I've had was actually building that business. And then in December 2020, we sold the business. And then that was it was like just when aggregators started, on the come up. It wasn't like when you sold, when all the aggregators were like on every single YouTube channel and like sponsoring every single Amazon events. We're like right before that. But we sold it for, a good chunk of money. It was life-changing, chunk of money. I was able to buy my dream house here in Vancouver. As you guys know, it's not a cheap place to live. And I was able to just travel the world and do many things. And after I sold the business, actually funny timing, I sold the business and like a few months after I actually got really sick. And I got sick. I still don't really know what it is. It was like a combination of many things like stress, concussion, COVID, and just a bunch of things added up. And my brain, like a lot of doctors think, like my central nervous system literally just burnt out. So I took about like another 1.5 years to recover from that. And during that time, I just, I couldn't do anything. And when you can't do much, you really start questioning a lot of things. So I went down the path of spirituality and all these different modalities. And that was quite an interesting experience, which I can share a lot of the lessons with the listeners here. But yeah, right now, what keeps me busy is like running FBA Masterclass, which is, our course. And we're changing up the course space quite a bit. The course business is very interesting. I can talk to you a little bit about that if you're interested. And I want to get back to launching a few brands because I truly believe e-com is still like one of the best business opportunities. So yeah, that's a little bit of an intro about me.
That's awesome. So just walk me through, I guess, the emotional experience after you exited. Yeah. I won't lead the witness with my experience, but it was one of the most surreal things in my life. But for me, what was interesting is kind of the days, weeks, and months after the fact. So maybe, the day you got the wire, walk me through that experience, and then maybe the weeks and months after that, kind of what happened emotionally for you.
Yeah, it was, it was such a roller coaster because our exit was very, very different than most because we actually went to market early 2020.
Okay.
Probably February, March 2020. And when we first went to market, we went with Corin, the FBA broker. The first week, we got like 12 calls. Like he got 12 calls.
Yeah.
He's like, wow, like we want to buy this business. It seems very interesting. And we're hopping on calls. And then there was a few parties that was very interested in it. And then I was like, oh my God, like this, like I want to sell this business for millions of dollars. Like this is becoming a reality, you know? And then boom, COVID happened, right? And then everybody backed off because, you know, the world was very uncertain at that point and whatever. And we had to actually, our business was actually declining like rapidly at that time. Like we were down like 30% because Amazon had issues. Like we had to switch everything to FBA instead of FBA. Consumers weren't shopping for anything. Just the world was very uncertain. So we had to spend that time to actually revive our business a little bit. And then, as you remember, in like April, May, when we realized that the world is not going to end, but the malls are still closed, that began like the COVID bump. And we started doing like every single month, we'll like double the next, to the point where I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe this is actually happening. So, and then in September, one of the original parties actually came back to us like, hey, we want to buy your business, but we don't want to include this COVID bump. This COVID bump doesn't count. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, let me just take it out and you guys can pay your original price. But then what happened was they were leading us on, we were interested, we were negotiating. And then like literally before signing, they like kind of threw a wrench. They're like, oh, you know what? Like blah, blah, blah. So they changed like the purchase price. Okay. And then we were so invested that if it wasn't for like my broker and my wife, I probably would have just done it. I'm like, screw it. Like whatever, just like a few $100,000.
There's deal fatigue, right? You just get deal fatigue.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would have done it. I was like, I'll take the money and just whatever. And then they're like, no, like we're not doing that. I was like, great. And then I contacted our friend who worked at an aggregator. We were able to make a deal happen. So it was a long process. Okay. The point of me telling that story was it wasn't like, I know some friends have gone through the process and it took them like 3 months or 4 months. Like ours was actually a whole year. Okay. So it was very, very exhausting emotionally. It was quite the roller coaster ride. And then on top of that, you had COVID and this and that. So it was quite stressful. And then the day that the wire hit, it was like a rainy, Saturday. It was a rainy day in Vancouver, cold, wet. And then I was just like, everything was signing. I was driving home. My lawyer called. He's like, hey, and this is right before Christmas. So we're trying to get everything done because people go on vacation Christmas, right? Like pushing like Friday, the last hour, And then they were like, hey, congratulations. Like the deal is signed. Everything's done. Like boom, 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 boom. And I was driving. I was like really close home. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening. And then I went home and then, the wire didn't hit until Monday because it was Friday late. And then on Monday, I was like refreshing.
I did the same thing.
And then it was all there. And then obviously I took a couple photos of it, sent it to my buddies. So I was like, yeah, what's up? So that was cool. And then, we celebrated. Fortunately, during that time, it was, again, the height of COVID and everything was still closed. And we took our friends to Whistler. We paid for everything and experiencing, like sharing good news with good friends. I thought that was such a unique experience and fun. And then from there, I wanted to like do something else because during that time, a lot of people were exiting and I was comparing my exit with other people's exit. It's like, oh, wow, like he did 10 million, he did 20 million. And then my friend like AJ comes out of nowhere. It's like 650 million. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Like I had the appetizer, now on the main course, And then I was like, yo, AJ, tell me like what I need to do. I don't need 650, but what about like just 10% of that, 60 million? Yeah. And then he's like, hey, talk to my life coach. So I got in touch with this guy named Chad. And then he asked me like, Tom, what are the 3 things that you want to work on over the next 6 months? And I was like, Chad, I'll give you 3 things because you asked for 3, but really I came to you for 1, like how to make more money. Yeah. And then the other 2 were just BS. So like fillers, Yeah. Then they were like, oh, better relationship with my parents, better relationship with my Christina, whatever. Yeah. And then anyways, and then what's really interesting is during that time of working with Chad, I discovered kind of why I wanted to make that money. Before, I feel like, so we live in a society with mimetic desires, which is basically we want what other people want. Yeah. We want what other people have. But rarely do we actually sit down and sit back and be like, why do we actually want this for ourselves? 100%. How do we define our own success? How do we define our own life? You don't need to be like everybody else, and they don't need to be like you. We're all very, very unique. We all like different things. You might like traveling and I might hate traveling. You might like sushi and I hate sushi, but you got to find out what makes you truly happy in life. So during that time, I really discovered like what I was like, you know what? I'm doing this all wrong. Like I'm just chasing numbers at this point, you know? And I wanted to take a step back and be like, why do I really want this money? And a big part of that was straight up. It's just like, I wanted to prove to others that I'm worthy, because growing up, you know, my dad was never around. He was always traveling and he was never around. And as a kid, like you seek love from your parents. Without love, like a kid can literally die, you know, there's story. And so I was seeking love. And for me, you know, coming from the Asian background, like nothing's ever good enough and this and that. I realized that a big part of it was actually because I have a huge chip on my shoulder and I wanted to make more money to prove to others that I am worthy. So once I found that, I'm like, wait a second, like I don't need more money to feel that way, because if you don't feel that way, someone can give you $1 billion and you will still feel that way. So I'm like, all right, like I need to fix this problem, and money is actually not the solution. So I went down this path with Chad of like understanding, you know, this and that. And now, you know, I still think money is important and I love money. You know, if anybody wants to give me $1 million, I'll gladly take it, and I'll make sure to find a way to spend it. So don't get me wrong. I don't hate money. I love it. But for me, now I want to do something that is purposeful. I want to do something not just for the sake of actually making money. Money is actually now going to be like a byproduct. And if the purpose is so strong, and if I can actually just be so purpose driven, I actually think money is going to come to me easier than me chasing after money itself. So I think there is a balance of both worlds where you can have fulfillment and you can have money. But I think, for me before, it was just like the constant chase of money. And then once I had it, I was like, oh, is there all to it? And I think a lot of people would be like, well, maybe I just didn't make enough money, so let me go make more money. And then once they make more money, they're like, oh shit, like I'm still feel the same. And during that time, because making money requires a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices, they actually stop investing emotionally with their friends, their relationships. That's why you hear like billionaires getting like 6 divorces and stuff. You know, it's like, is that really a good life that you want to live? It's like, no, I'd rather have, you know, like a nice family, a wife that I love, kids that love me, that I can spend time, friends that I love. Because at the end of the day, you know, Harvard did this study where it's like the people that have the best relationship with other people are the happiest people. It's not the money, it's not the whatever. Like this is the longest study on happiness and it's relationships. So that's
cool. So in terms of your why now, and I think that's interesting that you made that discovery. I think it happens a lot with entrepreneurs, athletes that, you know, were in the locker room, they were used to, you know, the touchdowns on Sundays, all that, and then that goes away. And it was such a key part of their identity. And then when that goes away, it's kind of like what's left. And it's like your true self that's left. And sometimes people don't even know who their true selves are because it's so wrapped up in the business and the process of that. So what was your process to discover those things that mattered for you?
Oh man. Well, it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of deep work, a lot of meditation sessions with Chad. A lot of guided meditations, and Chad's been great. His website is Heist Wellness, HERST Wellness, and he's got this program, a 6 months program where it helps you to. For me, it was just truly understanding a little bit deeper who I am and what has caused me pain in my life, and making peace with those moments. And we are creatures of habits, and our habits are formed based on our experiences. And some experiences are not the most pleasant experiences. I'm sure you've had them, and I had. And if those experiences, if we cannot understand them, if we're just kind of like tugging them away and just like, oh, that was an awful experience and I don't want to ever experience that again, and you know, whatever, those experiences and moments can really, really shape who you are as a person today. And the crazy part is that a lot of these experiences you forgot, like they're living in your subconscious. So one example I can give to you is I work with another guy named Elliot, who you know. But he basically, he did this live session with one of my students, And my student was like, I can't make a decision. He's like, every single time I try to start an Amazon business or whatever, I can't make a decision. Well, guess what? If you want to start a business, it's pretty important for you to make a decision in many things. So he couldn't start a business. And Elliot helped him to overcome that. And it turns out that when he was like a little boy, he had to make the hardest decision any little boy would ever have to make in their entire lives, which is his parents were getting divorced. Which parent does he want to live with? And the parent actually give the onus on this kid, which is like, heavy. It's heavy. Like as a kid, I remember like my parents were fighting. I'm like, no, like that's the scariest thing any kid, you know? And that experience traumatized him so much that now whenever he has to make a decision, his subconscious kicks in. He's like, hey, remember that moment? But he doesn't even remember that moment, you know? And now he was able to actually make peace with that moment. So instead of that moment being like fight or flight, like, oh my God, he now looks at it from an adult perspective, like, hey, like, yeah, it's a shitty situation. But guess what? Like, divorces happen and your parents still love you and you're still here today and they're still here today. So like, it's all good. And then he just felt this weight off his shoulders and he was able to now, you know, make decisions a lot quicker. So through my experience with working with Chad, you know, I'm not going to go into too much about all these different things that I had to go through myself. But there was a lot of those. And I was able to truly understand who I am and gaining the self-awareness as well. You know, that's super, super important. And now whenever I kind of do something, the first question I ask myself is like, hey, why do you want to do it? Like, don't just do it because you want to do it. Like, why? And then I kind of talk to myself. I'm like, blah. Does that sound good? Yeah, it does. Okay, cool. Go ahead. Do it. And I feel good about it. Like my physical, I physically feel good about it. You know, sometimes when you do something and you don't want to do it and you feel like your legs heavy.
And you know it, but then you go through it for whatever reason. Pressure, social pressure, what you're supposed to do, but you, in your heart, and it never ends properly.
It never ends well.
Yeah.
So that's your gut.
No, that's amazing. And I think I found it quite interesting, both in my own experience as well as interacting with other entrepreneurs, folks in the Amazon space, etc. But there's some studies that I think are very much true based on kind of my personal experience, which is a lot of people get into entrepreneurship because of a chip on the shoulder or pursuing something else in life. They look at the number of folks that are depressed, that have ADHD, a lot of these other like associated issues. They're entrepreneurs. They're very disproportionate. I think it's because it's, you know, you're fighting your battle through the business, the battle of life and the battle of self. But yeah, when you come up for air and take a look at it, and I think it does take earning some success and achievement that you think is going to unlock another piece of that happiness. And when it doesn't, at least in the way that you think it's going to, then you've got a whole other thing where you really got to, to your point, do the work, dig through yourself and find out what really matters. That's awesome, man. Well, let's kind of turn the page. You mentioned FBA Masterclass. I just kind of, obviously there's a ton of stigma about the courses in general. Obviously the Amazon space is one of those. Why'd you start FBA Masterclass? What's the thought process behind it? What do you think about the space? And just for folks that don't know, I think that it's one of the more professional, sophisticated operations I've seen in the space. You got 40 plus employees, much more sophisticated when you look at things behind the curtain. But what goes into that business? Why do you do it? Why do you think there's stigma around it? How do you juggle the stigma with actually kind of serving up that platform for folks?
I think it's a tough business. I'll tell you that, man. I'm like, it's a tough business because a lot of it is actually like it weighs down on you, to be honest with you. At least for me. Like I started in 2019, I want to say. At the time I was really into Gary Vee, and then Gary Vee was like, document your journey. Like get a camera, and I was like, all right, I'll document my journey. And then as I was documenting my journey, I posted all the videos on YouTube, and people started following me, and I basically started getting an audience. And then at the time, a lot of people were selling courses. Not a lot. There was like a few people selling courses. And then I'm like, I wonder if I can leverage my audience for something. So I launched this like 3 months boot camp, $100 a month, 50 people joined. And I was like, oh my God, I just made like 15 grand, dude. Like that's awesome. You know? Cash, like, because with Amazon you make 15 grand, you don't get the
you could buy 20 grand worth of inventory.
Exactly.
Grow the business out.
And I was like, this is awesome. And I was like teaching people this, teaching people that. So that was kind of cool. And then I partnered up with David Zaleski, right, the Ecom Hub, and we did a 6-week program. We charged like $500 for that, and we made a bunch of money. So it was just awesome. I was like, people loved it. It was a great experience for everybody. And people liked to hear what we had to say. And I was teaching out of experience. You know, building brands, and I was just teaching people like what's working and what's not working. And the community of people were really, really supportive. And then we decided to turn our course into more of just like a traditional like evergreen model kind of thing. And that didn't do too well, but I was doing local events here in Vancouver while I was teaching people in person. That was a really, really cool experience. And then COVID hit, so I had to migrate everything to online because I can't teach people in person anymore. And then I partner up with Abdul, and he basically is really good at the high ticket program side of things.
Yeah.
So we started a high ticket program before high ticket it even was a thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We had closers, we had that. Now everybody has closers and setters. So we're kind of like the pioneer in that area.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, look, the stigma is obvious, right? There's just a lot of bad apples in this space, and very, very, very aggressive advertisers in this space. And I'll be honest, like I could probably potentially be one of them, right? Yeah. You do have to kind of like sell people that dream. You do have to like show them the fancy cars and the Lamborghini. I don't do that, but I don't have a Lamborghini. That's why. But I actually sold my car.
Yeah,
which was cool. Like the Ferrari who sold the monk who sold the Ferrari. So the China man who sold his R8. That's me. That's But, and that's another thing. It's like, which by the way, I actually really regret selling it because now I'm like, oh man, I could be driving that car. But I bought the car for the wrong reason. And then I was like, I want to get rid of all the things that is weighing me down. I bought like $100,000 watch, sold that. And I was just buying it to flex really, which is fine. I mean, everybody wants to flex somehow. Right. And, so anyways, I sold those things, but I digress. So, we basically the pioneers of the high ticket coaching programs. And yeah, I mean, it's been going really well, but something that's really interesting that has happened, the stigma was there's just a lot of bad apples in this space. Everybody make these large promises and it's interesting because if you truly think about it, marketers are just very aggressive advertisers, period. Right. Because if you look at Gatorade, right? Gatorade. Like athletes don't drink Gatorade because that thing is like filled with sugar. But you see a lot of athletes promoting Gatorade and stuff. In a way, it's like, hey, if you want to be like me, drink Gatorade. Or like Coca-Cola or a lot of things, you know? So, of course, advertisers are extremely aggressive because we're talking about money and because people think like, oh, they're selling us a dream and stuff like that. And the reality is that, you know, like this business works. Like it works. So you can have a wonderful life. You can use this business, but it requires a lot of work. And that's the part that people don't want to do is the work. Or else everybody be walking around with a six pack and driving a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. It's just not the case. You have to, it's tough, man. It's like, you know, especially when you are new to this game and you don't have a partner, you don't have a lot of resources. It's a scary journey. Because I've been down there, man. Like I almost quit my journey, even me, you know, if it wasn't for my wife, like I wouldn't be sitting here. So anybody that even wants to learn something new, that takes a course, I applaud you. Like that's step number one. That's the beginning of a journey, but that's why entrepreneurship is so hard because it challenges you from so many aspects. You're constantly growing, you know, even now, the economy isn't doing very good. Our business is not doing as good as before. But it's teaching me so many lessons, you know? One of the lessons that I've learned is during COVID, a new breed of entrepreneurs have appeared. And these are entrepreneurs that got lucky,
100%.
Okay? They're throwing money, like even traders, right? Like you are throwing money, any stocks. Like you should hear the stories that like, I was one of them, you know? I thought I was Warren Buffett. Dude, I was critiquing Warren Buffett. I was like, yo, this guy's old. He's a dinosaur. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore, you know? Like, what the fuck am I? Like, what? You know what I mean? But the guy's lived through this many times. He's seen this movie played out many times. And all my friends were throwing money in stocks and our group chats were all about stocks and crypto. And when the rug got pulled, everybody lost a lot of money, you know? But same as entrepreneurship and e-com, 2011, 2020, 2021, 2022. Great years in e-com, the best ever. And then now the economies have changed and you really, really get to see who's swimming naked under the tide. You know, the tide is pulling back now. So now it's like wartime. Now it's like time where I'm like, okay, like wake up. The good times are over. The bad times here. Let's like adapt and let's change. But the issue is a lot of the employees and team members, it's a 2-year habit, and you can't change that in 2 days.
Yeah.
The work from home shit, the this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so all that to say is everything is a lesson. Every day is a challenge. And if you're not physically feeling pain, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, what's the point of life? You know, I think life is all about growth, about progress, and it's fun. It's a journey. And just remember, like, if you are going through something that's very, very painful, like, you are on the right path.
100%.
Because watching Netflix with the baked potato chips is quite relaxing, and you can like go ahead and do that. But we all know where that's gonna lead you, right?
Yep.
I don't need to tell you where that's gonna lead you. We all know. So get off your ass, do something that's really, really hard, but trust the process that is actually going to lead you to a place of abundance, of a place of your dreams. And in order for you to go somewhere, in order for you to be someone you've never been, you got to do stuff you've never done, right? And then when you do stuff you've never done, you're just not used to it. But when you are used to it, it just becomes a daily ritual. It becomes a routine. So it's like brushing teeth.
Yeah, that's been a pretty big revelation for me too, is this polarity between suffering and challenge and success and wins. Because you feel good when things are going good, when achievements are happening, when success is happening. And when you feel adversity hit, it doesn't feel as good. But it really takes both of those. You need adversity to do and change the things about yourself to find that next level of success, that next part of your human growth, business growth, etc. And that getting comfortable, there's beauty in suffering and adversity as much as there's beauty in success and wins.
Yeah, it's true, man. And I think a lot of people think you need a lot of money to start a business. Now I finally realized you can't, like, giving a lot of money to someone who's disciplined is great. It's like pouring fuel on the fire, right?
Yeah.
The fire can boom. But if you're giving money to an undisciplined person, that's a recipe for disaster. That's bankruptcy. That's FTX right there. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, personally speaking, I thought that now that I have some money, I can basically do anything. So, we want to launch another Amazon brand? Yeah, sure. Let me hire, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, go take care of it. I didn't even like check in on them. I wouldn't like look at my Amazon account for weeks at a time. Boom, like lost a lot of money, right? So sometimes there's a beauty in not having anything and rolling up your sleeves and just getting dirty. And then you become so resourceful.
Scarcity builds monsters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have to find a way. There's no choice.
There is no choice. But then when you're just, it's comfort, right? And it's so easy to be comfortable. It's so easy, especially during the good times. And right now, as we're filming this, July 20th, 2023, like I've been saying this for about over a year now. I'm like, dude, something bad's gonna happen. Like, I do not think that I think in the business environment, the economy, if you are not going to be working hard in your business, if you are just taking things as if it was 2020, 2021, 2022 in the e-com world or any world, like, you're gonna die. And right now, even for myself, like, it's a new shift in how I'm approaching business now. So it's like, again, it's like wartime. It's no more like peacetime. It's time to be a savage. And that's another thing. It's like, because everybody is so comfortable, even if you are remotely like a savage, like I told people, like, you do not need to be the best. You just need to be slightly above average. And right now, because the time's so good and the comfort is so comfy, like, the good is actually, the bar has been set very low. So you do not need to be the best. You just need to be above average. So
Agreed. It's that whole Edom, hard times build hard people. Easy times build soft people. So
it's a cycle. It's absolutely a cycle.
Cool. You have a ton of wisdom for your young years, and you've had a lot of accomplishments and major life shifts in the last couple of years. Sold your business, went through a lot of health scares, discovered the self discovery process of figuring out who you really are. Just got married. You've got the world in front of you. How do you kind of see things transpiring for yourself the next 5-10 years? What's next for Tom?
I mean, I think it's time to have some babies, some
little
Toms running around.
Love
so
it.
that's probably going to happen pretty soon. But I try not to think too much into the future because it gives me a lot of anxiety.
Good for you.
Because it gives me a lot of imaginations.
Agreed.
It's a lot of, what could it be like? Like, what if that? What if this?
Yeah.
And a lot of these what ifs gives me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And what I realize is like none of these what ifs actually even matters because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So I do have a goal. I do have things that I want to work on. I do know my values, and I just want to live by that. Like I want to live by those, and whatever transpires, whatever happens, it's out of my control. Yeah. So every single day, all I can do is do the things within my control, learn new things, be good to my friends, be good to my family, be good to my wife, doing things that gives me energy, going to the gym, eating healthy, getting good night's sleep, and the things that are in my control. And then in 5 to 10 years, like I really don't know.
I love that mentality. And that's something that shifted for me quite a bit because I always considered myself more of a manifester,
Yeah.
Thinking about what I want to have happen in 1, 2, 3 years and, making it that reality.
Yeah.
And it's worked for me in the past. So I thought that was the secret to things and that's kind of what worked. But in reality, when you spend too much time thinking about the past or the future, you lose so much of the present moment.
Yes.
And there's something about knowing who you are as a human being, which takes a ton of work, as you kind of alluded to, but discovering who that is and what matters to you, and then just leaning into that space in this moment today.
Yeah.
Not thinking about anything else, not thinking about tomorrow, what you're eating for dinner, where you're going on vacation, just residing in that space. And then I find that when you're in that present space where you're in your soul's work, things happen the way that they should. Or they don't happen the way you thought they were, and it's okay. Getting comfortable with that. And I think that's it's difficult for entrepreneurs because we're type A's, we're problem solvers. We want to fix stuff. We want to make certain things happen. So you got to have that comfort with the unknown, which I think is one of the secrets I hear a lot of thoughtful people say. So it's cool. For you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So where can folks find you and follow more on your journeys that are curious?
Yeah, I'm not posting as much on YouTube these days, but I probably will again with like podcasts. I love doing podcasts, like long form content like this. I hate doing like short form like TikTok shit. It's like it's too much for me. Too much of a boomer. That's funny. Too old. But YouTube Tom Wang, Instagram Tom Wang. I'm more active on Instagram these days, just easier. And FBA Masterclass if you're interested in learning Amazon from Adam and I. So that's pretty much it. I had a lot of fun being on this podcast. It was good. Dude,
I was off camera and on camera. I always enjoy chatting with you. I feel like we're going back to soul work, you're kind of people find you, and it's interesting how the world works sometimes. I was following you when you're doing the Gary Vee journey stuff, and it resonated with me. And then here we are, 4 or 5 years later in your place in Vancouver. So it's, as always, great to catch up. You're an amazing human being. You lead with your heart, which I really like, and you are transparent and honest about things, which is refreshing. And I think people gravitate towards that. That's certainly why I gravitated towards you. So good to peel the onion back a little bit more. So we're going to leave show notes. If you're listening to this on podcast form, we're going to leave show notes and links down below. If you are on YouTube, you'll see the links directly in the description and the comments below. But thanks for tuning in again to another Seller Sessions episode, Tom. It was awesome to have you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you.